The Urantia Book is a massive text, and if you're watching this video, perhaps you're new to the book itself or are willing to give it a second chance. For the sake of the brevity of this video, if we dismiss the identified borrowing of human works, the early 20th century scientific observations of the Urantia Book, and of course the ambiguous, secretive backstory of the publication of the text, I am simply amazed that so few individuals have decided to make the switch to the revision of the Holy Bible that simply makes more philosophical and religious sense rather than other so-called canonical texts that relied on oral traditions and cultural influences to describe God. I mean, seriously, the Urantia Papers literally claims to provide a very detailed and plausible roadmap of our origins, why we're here, and a beautiful philosophic outlook of inclusion and the general administration of the universe, and yet so many have failed to lift a finger towards this over 2,000-page text. Well, I suppose that's at least half the reason why so many have chosen not to read the book in the first place, simply due to the enormity of the literal work. But I, for one, have one more theory that may resonate with my previous readers of the Urantia Book, that includes the improper backwards organization of the sections of the text that you might find compelling. In actuality, I propose that the true problem begins with the authors of the Urantia Book themselves. These celestial beings range from midwayers, who are best described as being a step ahead of us intellectually, that are caught midway between material and spiritual existence, working our way up to the top of the list of other authors, which includes the perfecters of wisdom, which are considered stationary sons of the sacred Trinity, and the closest to deity revelators we have had second to our own creator paradise son, known as Jesus Christ Michael. One of the things I've learned over my lifetime is that there's typically two types of people. There are doers and there are teachers, right? In other words, some of the most intelligent individuals I came across during my time in the Navy were nuclear engineers. These brilliant minds could come up with some of the most complex and intricate ship schematics and advanced understanding of mathematics, but often failed to make a pot of coffee or operate a microwave. This led to the unofficial Navy reference to nuking something if a sailor were to make something far more complex than it needed to be. So if you can envision some of these higher intellectual celestial beings who are doers and not teachers, with the reality that many of these entities fail to fully understand our culture and limited perspectives, then you really have the first three sections of the Urantia Book. Consequently, it's no wonder that some might gawk at the early pages of such a new and exciting text that describes certain revelations surrounding the universe. There are a few exceptions to what I'm saying here. As one brief example, Jesus Christ Michael is the highest entity that indirectly influenced the words and works of the Urantia Book, of which he masterfully was able to minister to us during his life in the flesh. But this reality was like the exception to the principle when it came to many of the authors of the Urantia text. Unlike the life carriers or archangels, Christ Michael was born and raised as a human, went to the schools of that period, had his own thought adjuster, and by his 30s understood the human condition pretty well. Couple that reality that the life and teachings of Jesus comprised a great deal of Jesus' masterful human teachings, with the midwayer authors being among the lowest celestial beings that are nearest to us that wrote section 4. It simply blows my mind that the easiest to digest material would be represented in the back of the book as the final section rather than the very first passage. Consequently, the Urantia Book fails to have an early cultural bridge from the Holy Bible to the Urantia Book revelations and literally throws the central and supreme universes in your face, as if you had any point of reference at all to immediately understand the administration of the master universe, and that both mono and polytheism is supported by this text. So the punchline recommendation that I'm making is to work your way backwards in the Urantia Book, starting with the life and teachings of Jesus, to the history of Urantia, to the local universe, and then finally ending with the central and super universes. For many readers, the Urantia Book can feel overwhelming at first. After all, its vast scope covers cosmic history, the nature of God, and the intricate structure of the universe. Diving straight into these separate topics might feel like jumping into deep waters without a life raft or perspective-seeking knowledge and understanding. Contrastingly, in theory, it is likely that the authors attempted to use literal sense in constructing the book, placing the earliest points of time and space, which, by the way, doesn't exist for existential deity, all the way up to more modern times with the appearance of Jesus Christ. This means they started toward an accurate perspective of the beginning of time onward. Additionally, the fourth section of the book was added 1 year after the other 3 sections of the Urantia Book was published in 1935, due to the current Lucifer vs. Gabriel court case currently being disputed. Consequently, the organization of the text might be more representative of a linear timeline of creation in the more grandiose sense, rather than what is more relatable to the reader. Consequently, the fact remains that the beginning with Jesus' life offers a much more approachable and relatable entry point. Many people have some familiarity with Jesus' life, whether through religious tradition, historical studies, or cultural narratives. Reading his story first provides a sense of recognition, assurance, or even continuity that ultimately an Urantian, or a person that follows Urantia papers, is a Christian at heart first. This reality helps the reader ease into the Urantia book rather than encountering completely unfamiliar ideas right away that are likely going to throw people completely for a loop. Unlike abstract theological discussions, Jesus' life is a deeply personal and human journey that many of us can relate to. His struggles, relationships, and teachings resonate universally, along with a sober reminder of how little we still truly know about the Master Universe. His compassion, wisdom, and moral example help set the foundation for understanding broader spiritual truths upon the basis of the brotherhood of man. Many readers report that this section is emotionally engaging, making it easier to stay motivated while reading. This reality might be due to the notion that midwayers mysteriously had access to key players' thoughts in the Jesus narratives, such as the apostles of Christ or other key figures taking the creative essence of a fiction novel, yet still incorporating such a level of introspection and emotion as purported literal fact, declaring the first nonfiction reality textbook in existence. So in other words, you will learn the very moment that Judas Iscariot internally chose to distance themselves from Jesus due to his thoughts and feelings being described to the reader. After all, the Midwayer Commission, who created this text, reported human experiences as being part of the recorded historical data. So try to wrap your head around that one. In the Urantia book, Jesus is not a simple teacher or prophet, but rather he is a direct manifestation of divine wisdom, being grounded by experiential human experience, serving as the cleverest example of what it means to live a spiritually enlightened life in the flesh. Jesus is described by not being the voice of God per se, but rather having their own authority to speak for themselves on God's behalf. Beginning with his story allows readers to absorb these core values first, which hints towards an expansive and vast hierarchical structure, prior to diving into the more abstract discussions of God and, of course, the Master Universe. Jesus' life offers practical lessons on faith, morality, personal growth, and divine purpose. His interactions with people, his kindness, patience, and wisdom act as a guide for how to approach spiritual life in modern times. After exploring Jesus' story, readers often find that they will return to parts 1 to 3. They will see a clear connection between God's nature and the human experience, because they have absorbed divine truth through Jesus' teachings. The Urantia book has detailed discussions on cosmology, history, and philosophy. When prematurely approached, they can feel dense, difficult, and sometimes outlandish, such as the ultimaton, which are energy particles that make up electrons. However, after reading Jesus' life and teachings, many readers find that they have a stronger foundation to tackle these deeper subjects, slowly realizing the immense host of celestial beings that were simply assisting Jesus during his incarnation on our planet prior to an enormous laundry list of entities to be disseminated at a future time. Many people approach the Urantia book seeking personal insight as they attempt to enhance their spiritual journey and discover meaningful ways to live with faith and purpose. Readers learn how to approach life with compassion, honesty, and integrity, not through rigid dogma, but rather through a thoughtful, loving way of living. Many episodes explore how Jesus handled adversity, betrayal, and human suffering. Readers can apply these lessons directly to their own challenges, finding strength and wisdom in his example. One of the key themes in the Urantia book is freedom of personal faith, where Jesus never forces beliefs but instead encourages deep personal discovery of spiritual truth. A new reader starting with his teachings provides a sense of clarity and personal empowerment in one's faith journey. Instead of jumping headfirst into discussions about God's nature, planetary history, or cosmic administration, reading Jesus' life first allows a smoother transition into larger themes. Core concepts becomes more accessible. As an example, once a reader understands Jesus' example of divine love, they can better grasp the nature of God, divine justice, and spiritual purpose when exploring later sections of the book. Parts 1 to 3 contain advanced metaphysical concepts, but reading about Jesus first grounds these ideas in human experience, making them easier to comprehend. Contrastingly, after absorbing Part 4, many readers feel intrigued about God's relationship with the universe, sparking genuine enthusiasm to explore deeper sections of the book, insulating readers for harder reads to come that take patience. After all, I, for one, did not even begin grasping the essence of the Urantia book until my second reading. Finally, one of the strongest reasons to begin with Part 4 is its gripping, well-written storytelling. Unlike theological works that feel abstract and dry, requiring pure speculatory faith, this section reads like an intimate biography, making the experience immersive and emotionally engaging. Instead of broad summaries or even instances of implied truths, readers encounter specific dialogues, detailed events, and meaningful personal interactions from Jesus' life. We see the evolution of Jesus' teachings, his relationships with family and disciples, and the development of his mission. This includes his moments of joy, wisdom, struggle, and sacrifice that creates an unforgettable reading experience, leaving a lasting impact. Thank you again for watching today's video, and I'll see you on the next one.